Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Today's episode of the Health by Haven podcast is a fun little catch up with my friend Savannah Abel. She was on episode 4 of the podcast, actually the very first guest. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, definitely listen to it. We dive in all in her background of why she loves health and wellness, starting her own personal training company with her friend. And we talk all about her bikini bodybuilding competitions in the past. And so she mentioned, I believe during that episode, that she was getting ready to start prep for another competition this fall. And so I knew I had to bring her back on the show so we could get an update on how all of her training and prep was going. So this episode is really a lot of focus on her competition. And we recorded this at the time when we recorded this, she was about 2 weeks out from her competition. And the time this episode releases, she'll have just competed the previous weekend. So we're really excited for her to see how she does in the competition. Definitely go check out her Instagram, linked in the show notes below, so you can see how she did. But Savannah, we're all cheering you on. And for everyone listening, you're going to learn so much more about the whole world of bodybuilding and these bikini bodybuilding competitions. I know I learned so much. It was so fascinating to hear from Savannah. So hope you guys enjoy. All right. Today on the Health by Haven podcast, we have Savannah Abel back on with us. Savannah was one of the first guests on the podcast and one of my dear friends. And I'm so excited to have her back on today. We're going to chat all about her upcoming show. So first of all, Savannah, how are you? You want to fill us in a little bit on life, I guess, the last few months since we've chatted?
Yes. Hi. I'm happy to be back. It's been a full summer, I think, since we've talked. So that's been really fun. We did a ton of traveling this summer, seeing things, going places, and in the middle of it started my competition prep. So sometimes it can get a little hectic, but honestly, it's a good distraction. Being able to still kind of like do your things in life. So that's been amazing. Being able to kind of like fit everything in. I'm also in the middle of wedding planning, so that has been some great fun to be able to get into. So this summer's just been lovely. Lots of good times outside. Lots of good workouts, lots of good time spent with like friends and things, old and new, that we've made. So it's been really good.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Yeah. You have been so busy between travel and competition and wedding planning. You're right. So let's start with the competition. We were talking offline. You said it's in 2 weeks now. Is that right?
Yes. 2 weeks from yesterday. So I'm kind of getting into like the last home stretch period where we're like really pushing for the next like week or so, and then hopefully this time next weekend we're on like the finish line, or like the up and up in a sense. So I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Yay. Okay. What contest is it and where is it?
So I'm going to be going to Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's called the Night of Champions. And it's going to be like an NPC, so amateur show as well as pro show. It's a natural show too, so that'll be nice. I haven't ever competed in a natural show before. And that'll be nice to kind of see how I stack against people who are all natural as well, versus in the past I've competed against shows where wasn't just a solely natural show. So that'll be kind of fun to see. And then I'm still having the same coach, imposing coach, so they're excited to kind of like see how things shape up here. This will be my third year competing. And I was actually looking at photos this morning of last year and the year before, and like it's insane. You like don't really realize how much you change, like mentally and physically, obviously in this sport, but like the amount of muscle that I've put on, even though right now I don't feel very muscular, I feel like very lean relative to like 2 years ago. Like it's it's insane. It's so cool to kind of like know that like the small things that you do every day like really do build up over time. And you can like physically see that come to fruition, which is so fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. So tell us in layman's terms for people who don't know a ton about the show world, what is a natural show? What does that mean versus what you've competed in the past?
Yeah, so a natural show essentially they'll do like testing, kind of like from the like pee in a cup kind of thing before the show starts, before you kind of like check in and things like that. And essentially like in the bodybuilding world, there's like different sorts of performance enhancing drugs and varieties and stuff like that. And like it's not, I would say it's not talked about widely, but like it's something that like you could potentially be competing against somebody who is taking performance enhancing drugs. And what that looks like is like they're just going to be able to hold their shape and retain their like muscularity better than someone who's natural normally. So like if you see somebody who like, even though they're really lean, their muscles are just like very kind of like round and bubbly and like juicy and also almost a sense. And then someone who is natural, usually it takes a little bit longer to build up that same amount of like looking muscle when you're that lean, as well as like food and salt and stuff like that to like pump up your muscles when you are in that stage. So you're like the body will respond differently.
Hmm.
And so that can, affect placements and stuff like that and the way your shape is on stage day a lot, than how you retain muscle as you diet down, because obviously as you're eating less and less, your body is yes, taking away body fat, but like it's also taking away muscle from your body too. So a lot of times natural athletes will tend to end up being like leaner in a sense, versus like kind of like that round, juicy, like bubbly kind of muscle that you see. And not saying that can't happen, and everyone's body's different. It takes a lot longer to build up that kind of like muscularity, versus somebody who might be taking PEDs.
Okay, gotcha. That totally makes sense. And I really have like heard more about performance enhancing drugs in like the running world just from the content that I
Mhm.
listen to and everything and all the like clean athletes and things like that. So very interesting that it trickles, into different worlds as well. So that should be exciting. Now, you said you have the same coach and posing coach. Did they have other athletes as well that are going to these competitions, or is it just you? Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so both my coaches they coach other athletes. I don't believe either one of them have other girls that are going to this specific show. There's a lot of times there's kind of like a few larger shows that happen throughout the year. And they'll go to a few of those. And so it'll be more selective. I chose this show in Chattanooga just because it was like easier to go to, like location wise for me. It's almost going to be kind of like a warm up show. I'm hoping to go to another one after it in November. That's a bigger show, that they might have more athletes going to themselves. So at this point, this might be my third year. It I kind of know how to like run. I know what things I need to do. I know when to start my tan. I know what layers to do. I know all the things I have to make sure I check. Do I have my suit, my shoes, my jewelry, when I'm supposed to eat things? I'm in constant communication with them the weekend of the show. Between the three of us, like I'm sending check-in photos and videos to them like constantly throughout the weekend just to like let them see like where my like physique is shaping up, how my body's responding to like food. Do we need to increase food, decrease food? I'll usually also have my now fiance has been there, as well as my family, take videos if my coaches aren't there of me when I am on stage, do my routine the first time, and have them send it to my coaches if my coaches aren't there, so we can kind of say, hey, what do I need to focus on next time I go back on stage again? Like live tweaks as best as we can. Or if there's like a live stream, like you can watch these shows and like live stream it, they'll sometimes like get onto the live stream as well. So there's different ways, but they have a bunch of different clients that they coach for both.
Okay. So then tell us, is there like a dress rehearsal? Do you have multiple rounds? Are you doing different things each round? Like kind of walk us through what competition weekend looks like.
Yeah. So competition weekend, maybe I'll start with like Friday when you get there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure everyone has seen the like, when you think of bodybuilding, I feel like people think of like lots of like orange skin and like bikinis and sparkles, and you're not wrong. But that's like part of the fun. And so essentially what happens is Friday going to the show, you will get there, you will put like your first layer of tan on. And it's like, it's not just like, oh, let me just go get some, tan outside. Like this stuff is intense. It's kind of fun. So you have your first layer of tan on. You will usually like eat some sort of like refeed meal the night before, which is like usually a meal that has like more calories in it. So your body almost like soaks it up to a point because you've been in like a lower caloric stage for so long, and it almost like brings you that like that juiciness and that like pump to your muscles. So that's usually Friday. You kind of like have like a check-in with your show. They like kind of take your measurements, check you in and all that good stuff. Walk you through like where you're going to start, where you're going to walk out, how things are going to work, who the judges are. And then Saturday morning, it's usually a really early morning, especially for the girls. Wish I was a guy in this stage, but like early hair and makeup is normally the case. So usually I'm up at like anywhere between 4 and 5, just depending on when my like hair and makeup appointment is. And I'll get my hair and makeup done there. Usually have some sort of like extensions that I bring as well that they'll put in, which is kind of fun. So you get like super glammed up. I'm, constantly sending like my like fasted my coaches, have all my food and my meals ready to go, like being really, even though you're like going, you have all these things you're doing, like getting your hair done, getting your makeup done, getting to the show, like you have to almost be like very adamant about like your time and when you're eating your meals too. So it's like very structured. So you will see people carrying around like big like portable lunch boxes too. So that's kind of funny. And then like a roller suitcase too. So you'll see everyone like walking around with their suitcases that has like their extra shoes in it, their extra tan, their jewelry, like clothes backstage. So everyone's normally like, once you get tan, you basically live in like black sweats for the next 24 hours so you don't get things everywhere. So later that morning, after you get your hair and makeup done, you kind of get to the venue. They'll put on another coat of tan for you. You'll do any other touch-ups. And then you wait. So it depends on when you're called out. So within a bodybuilding show, they usually have like men's and women's. Some shows are just female. I've been to one like that as well. But essentially within the men's and the women's, there's different divisions. And the division is determined by like the type of muscularity and like where the muscle sits in the body and the different like shapes and the poses that the coaches or the judges are looking for. So within the female area, you can have the bikini division, the wellness division, figure division, physique division. And then men's, you have a few others as well. So they have like an order before the show that says, hey, this is who's going to go out when. And normally the division that I'm in, which is bikini, it's usually last. So I'm waiting for, wake up at my 5 a.m., get all my hair and makeup done. I'm ready to go by 7. And then you wait for like probably another 3 hours to actually step on stage.
Oh man.
So that whole time it's a lot of just like keeping your cortisol levels low, really. Because you have so much nerves. So you're really just hanging out backstage, like getting to talk to the other competitors, which is really the fun part. Like at this point, like you've done the hard work and that's when it's enjoyable. Like you're ready to go. You're a lot of times you'll like kick your legs up. You don't be like walking around everywhere. You're eating all your foods. You're making sure you're drinking your waters if you need to, like just staying in check, and checking with your coaches and just really hanging out. So it's a little bit of like a hurry up and wait kind of situation.
Yeah.
And then once it is your time to go on stage, you'll when you're in your division, a lot of times people will sign up for different classes. So within a division, there's always a true novice. So that's somebody who has never done a show before. So once you do that once, you can't do it again. So you potentially are competing with someone who's never stepped on stage before. And there's a novice, which means that you've competed before, but you haven't won. Like your class, your height class, and then there's open. So open is then the area where you bring in the true novices, the novices of every single person within your height class, as well as some of the masters. So for these divisions, you can compete up to 35 years old, and then after 35, it gets into what they call like the masters stage. So they masters in increments of 10 years. So they'll have like the 35 plus, 45 plus, 55 plus, 65 plus. Some of these people who are that old competing are like insane. Like,
wow, yeah.
It's so cool to see that. But essentially, like in the open class, you could be stepping on stage. Like I could be stepping on stage with someone who's like 35 or 40, and I have. And so that's kind of what the open is. They'll bring in people and you're like more so compared to like people across different ages.
Okay.
For the most part, when you do go on stage, you will be compared to people who are in their same height class. And that's usually how they group you. It's not like as much as people think it's about weight, they don't care what your weight is on stage. Like they'll take your weight when you check in, but like that's not how they determine like what your score placement is. It's all your shape and your physique. So they have people grouped by height class when you walk on. So, because like if you think about it, right, someone who's like 6 foot relative to someone who's like 5'5" is gonna look really different. So it's harder for the judges and harder to see like who is the better winner across each of these height physiques. So that's the other thing too. It makes it a little bit more of like an even playing field. So like for me, I'm 5'9". I usually tend to lean out really well. So relatively to like the girls who are shorter, like I usually tend to be able to like eat a little bit more calories because I'm taller. It goes through me faster. So I don't ever have any like feedback on, hey, you need to like usually like be more conditioned or like lose more in your core or something like that. But I do get the feedback of we need a little bit more of that like plumpness, that like juiciness, and more density. And that's what's harder for me as a taller athlete to retain versus someone who's shorter. It looks it holds a little bit more on their frame. So it's just like evens the playing field a little bit. When you get into the pro level, there are no height classes though.
Oh, okay.
That it's a whole new ballgame when you get to pros. So that's definitely something that is new, but obviously I'm not there yet. So it just helps to kind of like level the playing field there in the amateur division. So after you go on stage, so I would go on stage for like the novice group, essentially for my height class. I do my full individual routine. I would kind of step off to the side of the stage. And then usually the judges will bring all the girls back on and compare them to each other. So they do like a round of comparisons, and they'll do everyone. They'll like line people up. They'll have you like stand in your front post. They'll have you turn around. Sometimes they'll have you like walk to the back to see like who breaks form and breaks shape. And they'll have you like walk back. So it's funny. The biggest thing that judges are looking for is who's gonna break first, like who's gonna not be holding their shape first.
Okay.
And so like that it's crazy, but like your posing is so crucial on the day of the show because like you can't control who shows up, you can't control who the judges are, but you can control your posing. And so as long as you're like focused on that, like it's all about just like making sure you mess up less than the girl next to you kind of thing. Which is funny to think about. But at the same, it's a very like individual sport. So you are also competing against like the past version of you in a sense. But that's kind of how comparisons work. And then if you've already done like a full individual routine, if you have other like groups that you're walking out in, like then I would compete in like the open group. I would come out, I wouldn't do my full individual routine again, just from like a time perspective. Judges would usually bring multiple girls out at once, do comparisons against all the different like ages and such within the open category. And then that's like the prejudging stage. So usually all that prejudging for all the different men's, women's divisions will happen from like 9 a.m. to 12. If it's a big show, it can easily go to like 3 p.m.
Wow.
And then there's a break, and then there's finals that usually start anywhere from like 4 to 5 to 6 o'clock, and can last through 7 to 8 to 9 or 10.
Oh my gosh, that's such a long day.
So, a long day. It goes really big. Yeah. And the judges are like having a hard time like deciding. The competition's really intense. It can be a long day because they like keep people out there doing comparisons for a really long time.
Wow. Okay. Well, having a posing coach then is making like even more sense to me now. But as far as like your routine and the posing, what they're looking for, I mean, I know this is hard because it's audio, not a visual podcast. And so it's harder to explain, but like what exactly are you aiming for or like working towards with your posing coach that would like earn you plus points versus I guess like minus points or the mess ups that you're talking about? Like what does that look like?
Yeah. So for my division of bikini, what they're looking for is an hourglass shape. You want to have like full rounded like capped shoulders, and you want to have like rounded glutes where you can see a little bit of kind of like the what's called like the tie-in portion of where your like glute meets your hamstring. So it's like kind of like an upside down teardrop in a sense of like the top of your glute down to the like top part of your hamstring. You want to be able to see kind of like that tie-in focus, have a conditioned look to where you are like lean and your body is like low enough to where you can see the muscle kind of like pop from the surface. You want to have a tight core, and then that's really the biggest things. Like it's if you like go on the websites and see the criteria for divisions, like it's like 2 sentences and that's it.
Oh my gosh.
So it's very subjective, which is hard, but that's also what makes it interesting. So essentially my posing coach works with me. So when I'm in like my front pose, my back pose, and I'm like doing like transitions and like turns from like the front to the back, to where we are accentuating either like my shoulders or my glutes or that hourglass shape in every single like stance and turn. So that's really what we're trying to do. Making sure I stay on balance too, because like I'm doing all this in 5-inch heels. And then making sure, you just like look natural on stage. Like you guys have seen like actors and actresses and like theater and stuff and dances, and like what might look natural doesn't actually feel natural to the person. So like when I walk in heels too, like when you walk on stage, you don't want to look like you're like clomping like a horse, right? So like I'm actually thinking about walking on like a straight line right in front of me, versus like I'm crisscrossing my legs when I walk. Like one leg's going almost like across the other and back and forth, versus like that's not how you walk on a normal basis, right? You walk parallel like skis. So it's like little things like that that she teaches me on like how to look natural and graceful, and it flows, and you accentuate like those portions of your physique that the judges are looking for.
Okay, gotcha. That helps for people who aren't as familiar like me. Okay, so you said you kind of started your training for the show over the summer, right? So what does a full training cycle look like for you? And then maybe layer in like how are you balancing that with like travel, wedding planning, full-time job?
Yes, great question. So I would say first off, like I would train year round. So a lot of times people will think about it as like their prep as well as their improvement season. Some people call it their off season, but in the bodybuilding world, you're never truly like off. So that's kind of, I would say, like year round. But essentially, when you're like kind of starting, you're like defining the beginning of your prep. That's what people call is like their prep for a show. So what changes is really your food and cardio, and training a little bit too. So like as you get closer to show, you'll check in with your coach, usually like weekly basis, and they'll monitor like how your body is responding, how your energy is going in terms of like training, how your hunger is, if your body's reacting, like are you continuing to like lose weight and drop weight to be able to like get to that level of conditioning that we need. Are your muscles still staying full? Are you still able to like have enough energy in your training? If the answer is no to some of these things, then okay, maybe we need to like your like the intensity of your training, like the volume, or maybe we need to add in like an extra couple of days of like some higher foods or something. But essentially what happens is like for once you start your prep for like the next like 4 to 5 months, usually is the amount of time people will do for prep, is you're slowly going to be decreasing calories and increasing your energy expenditure, usually in the form of cardio.
Okay, gotcha. And are you doing more like running, walking, biking? Is it a mixture?
It's a mixture. In the beginning, usually it's a little bit more of like, I'd say like the intenser type of cardios, like I'll do like the Stairmaster or the bike or the elliptical. Like this prep, I did a little bit of like hit intervals, but also we do a lot of like low intensity cardio, because at the end of the day, you also want to hit that like fat burning zone versus like the like carbohydrate burning zone. So contrary to like what people think, like yeah, you're doing cardio. Like, I'm not out there running like you do. Like, you still probably have a much better endurance than I do the entire time I'm in prep. Because I'm not like going out there doing sprints and going for like 5 to 6 to 7 or plus more miles. You're really doing it for like a defined period of time. And usually it's anywhere from like 15 minutes, 15 minutes, like 3 or 4 times a week. And then it'll increase to like 30 minutes, like 5 times a week or something. And it'll slowly like increase as you get to the show. Things will then transition to doing like incline walking on a treadmill, keeping your heart rate up at a certain level, so you're in that zone the whole time. I'm at the point now in my prep where I'm really just getting steps. I'm getting a decent amount, like a lot of steps a day, but I'm just getting steps because my body has been through a lot the last couple months. And so like my energy is at like a certain cap each day. And so me sitting here doing like sprint intervals on a treadmill is not going to help me. Going to like almost be like counterintuitive, and like decrease progress in a sense. So transitioning to like kind of tweaking the like level of effort within your cardio versus like the time sometimes will shift as you get closer to a show, just because like your body has been in this like depletion state for a long time.
Okay, gotcha. There's so much science behind it. I guess your coach is probably helping prescribe like all of this to you.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. A lot of probably experience needed for that, because it is sounds so foreign to me.
Yes. And everyone is different too. Like everyone's body is so different. Like we know from in the past with me, like once we get my body to a point where I'm like been depleted for a little while and I'm like lean enough, if I start eating more food, I will start dropping weight.
Oh, wow.
So it's like very interesting how that works versus other people's like body reacts differently to different things. So it's good to find a coach that understands or can learn how like your body reacts and realizes that like the same plan they write for you is not going to be the same plan they write for me.
Yeah.
And like it's definitely not a one size fits all. There's like general standards, but like it's definitely very tailored industry.
Yeah. Wow. Well, important to have somebody who knows what they're
Yeah,
doing then, I'm
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So, since everything is kind of so prescribed and planned out, like when you're going on trips, like I know you guys had a European trip this summer, or you're going to visit family or whatever it may be, you have a long day in the office. Like, how are you balancing out, making sure you're getting in the workouts, getting in the right like volumes and types of food, all of that?
So if it's a longer trip, usually I will have to usually I'll talk with my coach about that. Or I will not plan like the really, really long trips for during this time period. Like, so I did Europe this summer, but that was the end right before I started prep. So I started right when I got back. Like there was no way I was going to Europe for 2 weeks and trying to be on prep. Like
Yeah.
possible, but it's not fun. So
Yeah.
that was fine. And like we had a plan for that and that was great. And then I got back. So usually I try to not plan trips longer than like 4 days or so when I know I'm gonna be in prep. Ahead of
Hmm.
so that's one. Two, when I do go on those like longer weekend trips or work trips, you just have to plan. It depends, like if you're going someplace that has a kitchen, amazing. If it's not, like you're gonna be packing your food and like taking it with you. Um,
Hmm.
if you got to research on like the gyms that are in the area, if you're limited on gyms, food options, or like whatever it may be, then you kind of have to plan around it. So like if I'm going somewhere for like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and like there's literally like the middle of nowhere, there's no gym around. Okay, I will probably like pre-stack my workouts and do like a workout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not take a rest day, take like 2 or 3 rest days over the weekend, and then the next week have to like, kind of like stack them back to back again. Um,
Hmm.
the other option is you can work with your coach and like bring like bands
Hmm.
and stuff like that and do like one workout while you're gone, 1 or 2 workouts while you're gone that's like banded. Obviously not ideal, but you make it work. Like that's kind of like the mentality that my coach and I have had is like we want to still be able like for me to live life.
Yeah.
And so you figure out how to make it work. I think that's the biggest thing that prep has taught me is like if you're going somewhere, if you want to do something, if you want to stick to a goal, like it's not like nothing's ever I can't, like it's impossible. Like you just have to figure out a way to do it. And it'll be easy. It's not gonna be glamorous by any means. Like I've done my fair share of like eating chicken out of a bag. But like that's just how it goes sometimes. So you do have to plan ahead a lot. If I'm like out at work, like if the day in the office gets crazy, then if it's not like not unplanned, then I guess I'm staying up later that night to like go work out or go to the gym. Or if I know it's gonna be a crazy day in the office, like I almost like have to like remind myself and like kind of note the meetings that like I might not need to be on video for so I can like eat my food and get that food in
Hmm.
consistently throughout the day. So it you kind of have to take it day by day or like week by week in a sense.
Hmm.
But that's what a good coach is going to be there for. Is if you're like, this is completely different from my normal schedule. What am I going to do? That's
Yeah.
what they're there to help you with too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great mentality. Is like if you have a goal, planning ahead so that you're still successful in working towards that goal, but not letting it
Mhm.
completely control your life where you're like, nope, can't go on this. Nope, can't do this because you're like so hyper fixated as well. And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to that, in and out of the bodybuilding world. Like if you have a big thing that you're working towards, but not wanting it to completely control your life or dictate
Yeah,
if you can go hang out with friends or go on a weekend trip or things like that.
yeah. And there's so many things I've learned from prep, like that it's all about your mentality, and what you choose to do and like making things fit into your life versus saying like, oh, I can't do this. I'm like taking things out. Um,
Hmm.
so it's really cool to see that. And it's like, and the small things add up. I know I was saying that at the beginning, but like the small things really do just like kind of stack on themselves. Like if you still just wake up and all you can do is go for like a 30-minute walk one day, do it. If you do a 30-minute walk every single day for a week and like that's all you can do that week, otherwise you wouldn't have done anything. Oh my gosh, like what's that math? You walked then for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, versus you wouldn't have done anything that week, right? So like things really do add up. And that's where you just gotta like take the small wins and know that like not every day is gonna be perfect, but like trying to make it as best you can when things aren't perfect in the scenario or like your structure, your routine, or your life, then you know there is going to be a time when like it is going to change. You're going to have your routine back, your structure back. But making things work in the meantime shows you like how flexible you can be. And honestly, it's taught me a lot about being like, all right, just gotta be adaptable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like while most people listening probably can't relate to bodybuilding or being like in your intense training schedule, I think they can relate to that. Like you don't have to be all or nothing. It's like 30 minutes is better than 0 minutes. Like go out and do what you can. You know, if you have this perfect picture in your head of like, I'm going to wake up at this time and go to the gym for this amount of time and do these things, like sometimes it doesn't work out. Just being flexible, like you said, can really still benefit you in the long run.
Definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Am I missing anything like big about preparing about the weekend of that you want to make sure like people understand about the sport?
I'd say the biggest thing we haven't talked about is post show.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Post show stuff, that's the fun part, let's be honest. So the post show things are always really enjoyable. Like you've done the hard work, you're there. Hopefully you have some like friends or family there with you, like being able to cheer you on. That's the really cool part because when you have that support team like and they see you up there, like no matter what placement you get at the end of the day, like they're there being like your biggest cheerleader. So like that's another thing too that like I would recommend is if you do ever want to compete, like make sure you know who your support system is and make sure they understand like the journey you're about to go on because they are so crucial to it. Like you don't want to just cut people out of your life when you're in like a training mode like this. Like you need that support. So being able to like celebrate with them afterwards is awesome. Like I just found out that um, my dad and brother are gonna be coming down to the show in a couple weeks. I thought
Yay.
my mom, but they're gonna come for the day, which is gonna be really, really fun. And they were like, "Let us know what restaurants you want to go to afterwards. Like, we'll make reservations and whatnot." So that's really exciting. Then obviously, like the post-show food is so fun. We've been eating a very like controlled diet for a long time, months, right? So like the post show is always fun to like kind of have some like different foods. You just have to be a little careful. You don't want to like go overboard and like, you know, kind of gorge. But it's a time to like really celebrate what you've done and like listen to your body and like kind of like feed into some of those things that you maybe like have missed in the past couple of months and just spend good quality time with people. Like your energy levels go up, you have more like you're not focused on your stomach, right? Like for the next couple of days afterwards. So like you do tend to feel more present, which I love the most. And that's really, really fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. I'm so glad they're all getting to go down and
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Amazing. For anyone listening who might want to start getting involved in this, what would your advice be on their first steps?
Get a coach. Do not try to do this without a coach or by yourself or copy anyone else's training plan, food plan, workouts, lifestyle, like anything. Get a coach. Like Haven said in the beginning, it's very scientific, it's very structured, and everyone's body is different. So get a coach. Make sure you find one that fits you too. Like talk to a few. If the first one you talk to, you're like, I'm not sure they're the right fit, like personality wise, we didn't maybe mesh, don't stop there. Like book somebody who you feel like understands you and understands your goals and how you want to train. And that is going to be your biggest asset because they're besides your family and friends, they're going to be your biggest cheerleader as well, but also be able to give you the tough love when you need it.
Yeah, great advice. Okay, well, I normally close out with rapid fire. I know you've already been a guest. I think Well, Billy is also repeat guest. I was gonna say you're my first. You're my second repeat guest, I think. But I have some new rapid fire for you if you want to go
Let's,
through that, and then
yeah,
I'll
let's
let you
do it.
go. Okay. Um, Almond butter or peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
Salsa or guacamole?
Salsa.
Pesto or tomato sauce?
Tomato sauce every time.
Biking or swimming?
Biking.
Sauna or massage?
Massage.
Stretching or foam rolling?
Stretching.
Summer or winter?
Oh, summer, for sure.
TV or movie?
Movie.
Board games or card games?
Card games.
And beach or mountains?
Beach, but the mountains recently have been giving me some love. So we'll see in the future. Maybe my answer is going to change.
Oh, foreshadowing. Okay. Well, Savannah, thanks so much for coming on. Selfishly, it was so fun to get to catch up with you today, but we'll all be cheering you on for your show in just a couple of weeks. Can't wait to hear all about it.
Thank you. Yeah, this was great. I'm getting to talk about the shows. And if anyone ever has any questions, feel free to point them my way. It's a fun sport, gives you a good purpose outside of work or whatever, just to have a little extra something in your life to work towards.
Yes, I love it. Amazing. Thank you.
See you, Haven.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. It makes such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.